Okay. And I want to go through your books later. Now, if that wasn't enough to make you one of the most interesting men in the world, like the Dos Equis commercial, you and I have ridden in the same Lamborghini. And you and I actually
Yes.
met just under 2 years ago for the TAI LOPEZ Mentor Conference at the Roosevelt Hotel, I think, in
Yes.
January.
Yes.
And so on top of all this other things that you do, you have probably one of the most famous mentees ever. And
Yes.
that's Mr. TAI LOPEZ.
Yes.
I was curious if you remember what that young man was like and why he came to your farm. He always quotes the lessons that he learned from you on that farm. And how did that happen? And did you ever foresee that happening? And is it strange to you when you're riding around in that Lamborghini, or is that just business as usual for you?
Well, I'm not surprised. As you can imagine, he was a very unusual young man. Completely curious, unabashedly curious, funny I mean, meal times were funnier than any sitcom you could ever imagine. Always with questions, but always with an edge of entertainment. You know, he's a now he's an entertainer. Okay,
Cracking jokes and
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Okay.
he is. He's a real entertainer. But I remember a couple of real serious conversations we had, and one theme that kept coming back in some of these serious conversations as he started finishing his apprenticeship. He would look at me and he would say, "Joel, I don't want to hit 40 with regrets." He said, "I want to figure out what truth is, what right is, and pursue it passionately. So when I hit 40, I don't have all these, well, I wish, shoulda, woulda, coulda, done it, you know." And
How old was he then?
he was 18.
Okay.
18 or 19.
All right, which is a mature observation
Yeah,
for
he
that
was
age.
he was 18 when he came, I think, and 19 when he left. He was with us for 18 months.
Okay.
18 months. And so that just, and we still, ever since that time, whatever, 22 years ago, we still have not had, we've had a couple close, but we've not had anybody who was more interested in my bookshelf section. And I have a lot of books. I collect books. I like books. I'm an avid reader, and of course, you know, he is a nutso reader.
Book a day.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so we were constantly saying, "Ty, bring back that handful of books." You know, my bookshelf section, my bookshelves in the house gradually gravitated to his, you know, apprentice cottage, and we'd have to go and get back the hijacked books, but always discussing and thinking about these issues. One of the things a lot of people don't know is, and I joke about him today because people ask, well, you know, what's a little like a teaser story you can tell about Ty, and he's a messy. A lot of people don't realize that. I've told him today. I'm not telling you anything that I don't tell to his face. We have a very sweet relationship. I say, "Ty, I'm glad you became a millionaire so you could hire people to clean up after you," because he was the Peanuts cartoon with Pigpen. You know,
Yeah.
the guy that's always got his dust cloud. That's the way Ty is. You know, he carried chaff, hay seeds. I mean, he was just dribbling this stuff. You know, in the house, in the truck, in every place, and it was partly because I think his mind was so focused on finding truth, finding answers, finding fits. I don't have time to brush the cuff off my jacket. You know, I gotta. And so anyway, that's the kind of little funny story about Ty. But no, Ty is just he is fantastic, and I'm so proud of him. I'm just so proud of him that he's taken these things and he's actually honored. He's honored his past. A lot of people in his position, they wouldn't want to admit that they lived with the Amish and lived on a farm and, you know, did all these things. But he's happy in his own skin enough to say, yep, and I learned a lot there, and it's okay.
Yeah.
That's a guy happy in his skin, and that's a good thing.
What kind of lessons did he learn at your place in the 18 months? And can some of those lessons only be learned on a farm?
I don't know how many of his 67 steps are quotes from me. I think 7 or 8 of them, something like that. There's several. but certainly one lesson, one thing that he learned, and one thing that he brought to us was he pushed us, for example, to rent our first farm. We had a friend, we had a guy who had bought a farm, and he was not a farmer, but he got bit by the farm bug. Going to buy this farm, but he didn't know anything about farming, and so he came to me. He knew about us. He came to me and he said, "Would you teach me how to do this? Set this up for me, and then I'll take it over in 2, 3, 4 years." Well, I said no because I was busy. I had enough stuff to do. I didn't need to complicate my life with other things. Well, Ty overheard the conversation. He was sitting there. When the guy left, he says, "I want to do that." He said, "It's one thing to be here on a farm that's far more developed, where you've already put in water lines and fencing and corrals, and you're not at the prototype stage anymore. Excuse me. You're farther down that road." He said, I'd like to develop a farm like this on the ground level. We're going to think about, where do the fences go? Where are we going to get water? How are we going to get water? All these things." And he said, "If I promise that it won't take any more of your time except to set it up," he didn't have any money. He said, "If you'll finance it," and maybe this is where he learned this, use other people's money. He said, "If you'll finance it and capitalize it," he said, "I'll run it, and how about we just share the profits 50-50? I said, "Well, how can I lose with that? He's not asking to be an employee, and if we don't make any money, I don't owe him anything. How can I not do that?" So I went back to the fellow and said, "Yes, we'll do this, and Ty's going to run it," and we did it. And that was the first farm we leased. And so the point of the story was, yes, we mentored Ty, but it's people like that move us beyond where we think we can go. And that's always the sign of a leader. A leader takes you places that you wouldn't go by yourself. And that's a really powerful thing. And he was then affirmed. He watched us, buy the cattle. We were there with the planning and putting in, we dug post holes and we put the whole thing in. And he ran it then. He had a little blue Vega or something.
At 19, he's running this thing.
Yeah. Some little rattle trap car. And he would run over there. It was, 15 minutes over there. And every day he'd go over there. That became then his chores. So he actually stayed another season in order to do that. Okay. And we ended up making, I don't know, $6,000 or $7,000. We gave him half of it. We kept half of it. And it was great for both of us because it moved us beyond what we thought we could do. And he certainly was so affirmed after that he realized his potential to sell an idea, make a pitch, and I think it was very affirming for the gifts that he's still expressing today.
Did you always have him carry a pad and pencil too? Is that something standard you would do?
Not sure.
No? Okay.
I don't.
I remember him telling some story about something.
Write it down.
Moving the kids. Write it down.
I will tell you this. I will, which is related to that. We're big on benchmarks. Benchmarks of proficiency.
Yeah.
Okay. Because mastery, you can teach a rudimentary skill. A 5-year-old can make an A, but it's only after you've made an A 1,000 times that you become a master of making an A. It's the repetition, the 10,000 hours or the 10 years, that's the repetition that creates the mastery. And so Ty, so we had these benchmarks that we've established over the years, and we said, you should be able to move a chicken shelter in 60 seconds. That's our benchmark. Now I can do it in about 40, but I'm
37.
You're still
right. 37, I think, was your record.
Oh, okay. Right. so I'm okay to do 60. That's okay. I'm not expecting everybody to be like that. And Ty would actually carry his watch and set his stopwatch, and he would race me. So you're going to move these 10, I'm going to move these 10. And he would race me. And he's the only, I think the only intern we've ever had, the only apprentice, that ever took it to that level. I'm going to race the master. That shows how unusual he was. Most people are, well, you know, if I can get along, or their mind goes into zero, whatever. But this turning everything into a game and everything into a competition, this separates the crowd from the leaders. And we tell this story to apprentices and interns today. Maybe some are even watching this and say, look, if you want to be a master, these are the things that you do. You don't just, okay, we're going to go out and move shelters, and I've got so much time to do this, and we just, no, it's, you're competing against the master, you're competing against the clock, and then you compete against yourself and see, can I even do it better than the benchmark? That's how you actually move to a place of getting along to a place of leadership.
Right, and that's where innovation comes from.
Yes, that's where the innovation comes from.
Talk to me about marketing, because again, another facet of your personality is when you started direct marketing your products to consumers.
Yes.
And so you got a lot of knowledge and experience on what it's like to speak directly to those consumers. And from what we're talking about in the early part of this conversation, you know, maybe the more educated that farmers get on this aspect, they can literally cut these middlemen out and make their products no longer commodities. What can we learn from you when it comes to marketing?
What you can learn from me is that the actual production skill, in a lot of ways, is secondary to communication skills. People who know how to communicate lead their field. The marketers are always the one who lead their fields, the ones who can do that. And so when parents come up to me, they've got 10-year-old in tow, and the 10-year-old has said, I want to be a farmer like Joel Salatin, okay? And the parents come up to me and they say, what can we do? You know what my answer is? Join the local theater company. Why? Because storytellers become the leaders. And ultimately, marketing is about storytelling, right? But farmers are not told that that's important. They certainly don't learn that. In fact, most farmers don't like people. That's why we're farmers, right? That's why we're farmers. And so this notion that I have to, really like people, love people, listen to people, and think about people all the time, I'd rather think about the tractor sitting in the field, or I'd rather, spend time with that. And so I encourage folks to join the theater company, get on the debate team, join Toastmasters, which is a verbal self-help group.
Public speaking,
yeah. But develop these skills. Now there are certain, because as you know, right now the single biggest fear of every adult is public speaking. That's the number one fear. Now, some people will never be, and I get that. That's fine. So the next thing is find a partner who has that skill. So I appreciate that there are stages in life, and there are temperaments and personalities that are introverts, that are not storytellers. That's fine. Just understand that if you want a farm that is resilient and secure because it's getting the full retail dollar, and you own if you want to be an entrepreneurial farm and not just a colonial cog in a feudal wheel, feudal F-E-U-D-A-L, not F-U-T-I-L. Well, maybe they both kind of go along. But if you want to be that kind of farm, you want to have a brand, you want to have a story, you want to have a customer, you want to have that retail dollar. So if you can't do it, realize you need to find somebody else with that skill set that will. And I'm a big believer that all the skills, all the talents and gifts necessary to be successful in a business don't grow on the same pair of legs. And so we need to develop these relationships in partnerships with shared skin in the game, not employees. I'm not saying employees. I'm saying, relationships that are collaborative, where both of us are stakeholders. We both win, we both lose, and we form these partnerships, formal or informal, but where I get you because you have strengths where I'm weak, and I work for you because I'm strong where you're weak. Those have been the way success has been built routinely.
Yeah.
And most farmers have been told, you don't want anybody else. In fact, you don't want any other people on this farm. You don't even want customers on this farm because they might trip and sue you. And blah, blah, blah. We're back to the bogeymen and the demons again. And so suddenly the farmer goes through this trajectory of life where youthful energy and enthusiasm and excitement into aging and downscaling, and oh, my joints ache and my bones hurt, and nobody wants this farm, and suddenly I'm an old geezer, and who's gonna take